be meat for you, even as the green vegetables that I have given you all things. So the flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood, you shall not eat. That is, the meat that you eat should be thoroughly bled, rather than wringing the neck, the cutting and the bleeding, draining of the blood. Surely your blood of your lives will I require at the hand of every beast, will I require it, the hand of man every man's brother will I require it, the life of man. Whoso then sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God he made man. Now, you remember back in the earlier part of Genesis, when Cain killed his brother Abel, God did not punish him with death. There was Lamech, who also told about killing a man in self-defense, and he was not put to death. But now God is establishing a period of human government, whereas in the human government, the basis for it is that if a man sheds the blood of another man, by man shall his blood be shed. It is interesting that capital punishment is something that is here declared to be a necessity by God, and yet it's interesting how that so many times there are those who are trying to remove capital punishment for those who are deserving of it. As we get into Leviticus, we'll find more about this capital punishment and how God sets forth the judgments for those who are guilty of certain crimes. To Noah he said, be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, multiply therein. And God spoke to Noah and to his sons, saying, and I, behold, I will establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, and every living creature that is with you, and I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by waters of a flood. Neither shall there be any more a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for a perpetual generation. Now, if you want to do a little interesting study, study the covenants that God has made with man on different occasions. God is making a covenant with Noah. The covenant is, I'll not destroy the earth again with a flood. The sign of the covenant is the rainbow in the sky. And so God said, I will set my bow in the cloud, and it will be a token of the covenant between me and the earth. With each covenant that God established, he established a covenant with Abraham, and God gave the sign of the covenant. God established a covenant with Moses. He gave the sign of the covenants. And so go through and study the covenants in the Bible and the signs that God gave for those covenants. It will come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth that the bow will be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature. And the bow will be there in the cloud, and I will look upon it that I might remember the everlasting covenant between God and all of the living creatures that are upon the earth. God said to Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I've established between us. And the sons of Noah that went forth out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. And these are the three sons of Noah, and with them the whole earth was overspread. Now Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, a farmer, planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunk, and he was uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told the two brothers, evidently in a sneering kind of a way. And Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it upon their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they did not see the father's nakedness. Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done to him, and he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be to his brethren." And he said, "Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and so all of the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. So the interesting account of Noah and the flood there in Genesis. Now, in chapter 10, where did the different ethnic groups come from? Chapter 10 is called the Table of Nations, and it tells us from which nations came from the three sons of Noah. So these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. And the sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, and Madai, Javan, Tubal, and Meshach, and Tyrus. Actually, Japheth went north. He settled around the Black Sea, and he is the progenitor of the Caucasian nations. And so probably most of us are in some way related to Japheth. It's interesting now with DNA, they can actually sort of trace what is in your DNA of what ethnic background you have, and if there's a different, in other words, you're a descendant of Japheth, or Japheth and Shem, and there can be, of course, crossovers, but they can identify, and it's interesting that in the study of the DNA, you may think that you are, French or something, but they can tell you, no, you're not really French. But by the DNA, they know now, they can trace back your origins, which are quite interesting. Interesting in the fact that the Mormons, in the Book of the Mormon, they had the idea that the Indians of America were actually from one of the tribes of Israel, Lehi, and a tribe, or the descendants. And so that whole idea was destroyed by the DNA evidence. They found that that the Indians of America have no relationship at all to the descendants of Shem because of the DNA. So that is interesting. But Japheth, Caucasian. So if you're Caucasian, they can sort of trace you back to Japheth. Ham went south, and he settled in the area of Egypt and then on south into the African continent. And Egypt was called Mizraim, and that was the name of one of Ham's sons. Shem, the father of the Jews,